The roulette wheel spins. Red or black. Everything or nothing. Robert Martinez stares at the ivory ball dancing between numbers, his trembling hand clutching his last $1,000. Just another day at the casino, he thought. Until he saw her. Maria Santos, the old man's granddaughter, steps up to the table. Quiet, determined. She places a single chip on red 17. My grandfather always said the casino remembers everything, she whispers, but it also owes everything. The wheel slows, the ball bounces, lands. Red 17, $1 billion. In 30 seconds, a janitor's granddaughter just broke the house. In 30 seconds, everything changed. This isn't just another day at the casino. This is the day when faith meets fortune, when the forgotten rise, and when one spin of the roulette wheel rewrites destiny. Sometimes the house doesn't always win. Sometimes it pays its debts. Stay with us for a story of redemption, courage, and the most incredible roulette win in casino history, where the smallest bet became the biggest victory, and where just another day became the day that changed everything. Full screenplay. The Nevada desert stretches endlessly under the scorching afternoon sun. Highway 95 cuts through the landscape like a silver ribbon, leading toward the neon mirage of Las Vegas rising from the horizon. The Bellagio's fountains dance in the distance, while the Golden Nugget's vintage sign promises fortune to all who dare. Inside the Golden Nugget Casino, the atmosphere hums with controlled chaos. Slot machines chime their electronic melodies, cards shuffle with practiced precision, and the roulette wheel spins its eternal dance of chance. The carpet, adorned with golden patterns, has witnessed thousands of dreams born and buried beneath the feet of hopeful players. Robert Martinez sits at the high-stakes blackjack table, his weathered hands betraying the tremor of desperation. At 62, he carries the weight of a failed construction company, mounting debts, and the crushing responsibility of providing for his disabled daughter. His company, Martinez & Sons, once employed 40 families. Now, it exists only in unpaid invoices and broken promises. "Hit me," Robert whispers to the dealer, his voice barely audible above the casino's symphony. The card slides across the green felt. Jack of Hearts, 23 bust. Another $1,000 vanishes into the house's coffers. Robert's savings account now shows a balance that wouldn't cover his daughter's medical expenses. For a single month, the irony isn't lost on him. He built half the commercial buildings in Henderson, yet he can't build a future for his own family. Across the casino floor, Maria Santos pushes a maintenance cart between the gaming tables. At 28, she possesses an unassuming presence that renders her nearly invisible to the high-rolling clientele. Her grandfather, Eduardo Santos, worked these same floors for 37 years before his passing 6 months ago. He was a janitor who spoke little English but understood numbers better than most MIT graduates. Mia, Eduardo used to tell her, the casino, it remembers everything. Every bet, every win, every loss. But sometimes, it forgets to collect what it owes. Maria approaches Robert's table, emptying ashtrays and wiping down surfaces with methodical precision. She observes his desperation, recognizes the familiar signs. She's seen this scene played out countless times, good people drowning in bad luck, hoping that the next hand will reverse their fortune. "Excuse me, sir," Maria says softly, "but you might want to take a break." Robert looks up, surprised by the gentle concern in her voice. "I'm fine, miss, just having a rough streak. My grandfather used to clean these tables. He always said that desperate money never wins. Only patient money does." Something in her words resonates. Robert studies her face, seeing not just a casino employee, but someone who understands loss. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." "He was, Eduardo Santos. Maybe you knew him." Robert's expression changes. "Eduardo, the custodian with the incredible memory for numbers. He once helped me calculate square footage for a hotel project." "Brilliant man." Maria nods, her eyes glistening slightly. "He passed away 6 months ago. Left me with nothing but stories and..." She pauses, "and one very specific piece of advice." The blackjack dealer clears his throat impatiently, but Robert ignores him, intrigued by this unexpected connection. "What kind of advice?" Maria glances around, ensuring they're not being overheard by security. He kept detailed notebooks for 37 years. Every spin, every win, every pattern. He discovered something about the roulette wheel in the VIP room. What did he discover? That it's not random. There's a mechanical flaw so subtle that only someone who watched it for decades would notice. The wheel has a bias toward numbers 17 through 21, specifically on Tuesdays between 3 and 4 p.m. when the air conditioning creates a slight vibration in the floor. Robert leans forward, his financial desperation overriding his skepticism. That's impossible. These wheels are precision instruments, regularly maintained and inspected. That's what makes it perfect. The flaw is so minor that it only shows up in long-term statistical analysis. My grandfather tracked over 10,000 spins. The bias is real, but it requires perfect timing and absolute faith. The weight of her words settles between them. Here stands a janitor's granddaughter, claiming to possess information worth millions, yet she continues emptying ashtrays for minimum wage. Why are you telling me this? Robert asks. Because my grandfather always believed that knowledge should help good people. You built the community center where my cousins learned to read. You gave jobs to families who had nothing. Now you have nothing, but you're still a good person. Robert feels a stir of hope, dangerous and intoxicating. Even if this is true, I don't have enough money left to make it worthwhile. Maria reaches into her uniform pocket and produces a small worn notebook. Eduardo's handwriting covers every page in neat columns of numbers, dates, and observations. My grandfather left me his life savings, $3,000. It's not much, but combined with whatever you have left, you'd risk your inheritance on a theory. I'd risk it on 37 years of careful observation and the memory of a man who never lied to me. The casino continues its relentless rhythm around them. Chips clatter, cards flip, and somewhere in the distance, a slot machine pays out with a cascade of electronic celebration. But in this moment, between a desperate contractor and a humble custodian's granddaughter, time seems suspended. Robert closes his eyes, thinking of his daughter Carmen, wheelchair-bound since a construction accident 2 years ago. Her medical bills consume every dollar he earns. Her dreams of attending college seem as distant as the stars. Opening his eyes, he sees Maria waiting patiently, her grandfather's notebook clutched in her hands like a sacred text. When he asks simply, "Today is Tuesday. In 45 minutes, the conditions will be perfect." They walk together toward the VIP gaming area, an unlikely partnership forged by desperation and hope. The high roller section of the Golden Nugget exudes a different energy, quieter, more refined, where bets are measured in thousands rather than dollars. The roulette table sits beneath crystal chandeliers, its mahogany finish reflecting the soft light. James Wellington, the VIP host, recognizes Robert from better days. "Mr. Martinez, pleasant surprise seeing you in our exclusive area. How can we serve you today?" "I'd like to place a substantial bet on roulette," Robert replies, his voice steadier than his nerves. "Excellent. Our table minimum here is 500, but I assume a successful contractor like yourself is thinking bigger." Maria checks her grandfather's notes one final time. According to Eduardo's observations, the optimal moment occurs at exactly 3:47 p.m. when the building's HVAC system creates a specific frequency of vibration. She glances at her watch, 3:44 p.m. Robert withdraws his remaining cash, $800 in crumpled bills. Maria adds her grandfather's inheritance, 30 crisp hundreds, probably saved $1 at a time, over decades of honest work. Together, their combined resources total $3,800. Not enough to solve Robert's problems, but enough to risk everything on one spin. The roulette wheel stands before them like an altar of chance. Its red and black numbers gleam under the lights, each one representing infinite possibilities. The croupier, a professional woman named Sarah Chen, nods respectfully as they approach. "Good afternoon. Are we ready to play?" Maria consults the notebook one final time. According to Eduardo's calculations, number 17 shows the highest probability during this specific time window. But she notices something else in his notes. A small asterisk next to certain entries, indicating moments when the bias was strongest. "My grandfather marked something special," she whispers to Robert. "Look at this entry from exactly 1 year ago today." Robert reads Eduardo's notation. Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. 17 hits twice in succession. Building vibration at maximum due to construction next door. Probability increased by factor of 3. They look around and notice construction sounds filtering through the casino walls. A new hotel is being built adjacent to the Golden Nugget, creating the exact same vibrational conditions Eduardo observed a year ago. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bets, Sarah announces. Maria's heart pounds as she studies the wheel. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about honoring her grandfather's memory, validating 37 years of patient observation, and perhaps giving Robert the miracle he desperately needs. All of it, Maria says quietly. $3,800 on red 17. Robert stares at her. Maria, that's everything we have. My grandfather spent his entire career watching this wheel. He understood it better than anyone. If we don't trust his knowledge now, when will we? Sarah Chen raises her eyebrows slightly. $3,800 isn't the largest bet she's seen, but the intensity of these two players is unusual. Something about their quiet determination commands respect. $3,800 on red 17, Sarah confirms, placing their chips on the designated number. The wheel begins to spin. The ivory ball dances along the rim, its path seemingly random, but perhaps influenced by forces only Eduardo Santos fully understood. Maria closes her eyes and hears her grandfather's voice. Mia, patience and observation defeats luck every time. Robert watches the ball's trajectory, thinking of Carmen waiting at home, of the employees he had to lay off, of the dreams deferred by financial reality. This single moment contains the power to restore everything he's lost, or eliminate his final hope. The construction noise from next door creates a subtle rhythm, a vibration that travels through the building's foundation and into the roulette table. Eduardo's theory suggests that this vibration, combined with the wheel's mechanical characteristics, creates a predictable bias. 37 years of observation condensed into this single spin. The ball begins to slow, bouncing between numbers as physics and chance engage in their eternal dance. Red and black blur together as the wheel's rotation gradually decreases. Maria opens her eyes, watching with the intensity of someone whose entire future hangs in the balance. The ball settles momentarily on black 35, bounces once, then rolls to spaces clockwise. Red 17. For a moment, silence dominates the VIP room. Sarah Chen stares at the wheel, then at the betting layout, calculating the payout. $3,800 at 35-1 odds equals $133,000. Red 17 wins. Sarah announces, her professional composure masking her surprise. Robert staggers slightly, overwhelmed by the magnitude of their success. $133,000, enough to pay Carmen's medical bills for 2 years, restart his construction company, and restore hope to 40 families who lost their jobs. Maria smiles through tears, feeling her grandfather's presence as strongly as if he stood beside her. Eduardo's decades of patient observation have finally yielded their greatest reward. James Wellington approaches, his expression mixing congratulations with the casino's natural concern about large payouts. Magnificent win. Absolutely magnificent. Will you be continuing to play this evening? No, Maria says firmly. This was exactly what we came for. As Sarah counts out their winnings, a mixture of high denomination, chips, and cash, other players gather to witness the extraordinary payout. Stories of incredible wins spread quickly through casinos, becoming legends that inspire desperate players and cautious observers alike. How did you know? Asks an elderly woman who witnessed the entire sequence. Maria holds up her grandfather's notebook. 37 years of watching and learning. My grandfather understood that casinos aren't just about luck, they're about patterns, patience, and knowing when to trust what you've learned. Robert collects his share of the winnings, his hands trembling with relief rather than desperation. Maria, I don't know how to thank you. Thank my grandfather by using this wisely. Rebuild your company. Help your daughter achieve her dreams. Give those 40 families their jobs back. What will you do with your share? Maria considers the question carefully. $66,500 represents more money than she's ever imagined possessing. I think I'll go to college. study mathematics and statistics. Maybe learn to understand numbers the way my grandfather did. They walked together toward the casino's exit, leaving behind the roulette table that changed their lives. The late afternoon sun streams through the Golden Nuggets windows, casting long shadows across the gaming floor. Other players continue their eternal struggle against odds and probability, unaware of the miracle they've just witnessed. As they reach the main entrance, Robert pauses. "Do you really think your grandfather knew this would happen?" Maria opens Eduardo's notebook to the final page. In his careful handwriting, dated just 1 week before his death, she reads, "Mia, when the time comes, trust the numbers. Trust the patterns. But most importantly, trust that good people deserve good fortune." "I think he knew exactly what he was doing," she replies. Outside, the Nevada desert stretches toward the horizon, no longer seeming harsh and unforgiving, but filled with infinite possibilities. Robert thinks of calling Carmen to share the incredible news. Maria thinks of college applications and mathematics textbooks. But first, they sit together on a bench outside the casino, two unlikely partners who discovered that sometimes the house doesn't always win. Sometimes, patient observation defeats random chance. Sometimes, the knowledge accumulated by a quiet janitor over 37 years can transform lives in a single afternoon. The Golden Nuggets sign flickers to life as evening approaches, welcoming new dreamers to try their luck against the odds. Inside, the roulette wheel continues spinning, waiting for the next player who believes they can decode its mysteries. Maria Santos and Robert Martinez walk into the desert sunset, carrying not just money, but proof that preparation meets opportunity in the most unexpected places. They came to the casino as strangers bound by desperation. They leave as friends, united by the memory of Eduardo Santos and the incredible power of believing in 37 years of careful observation. 6 months later, Robert's construction company employs 60 people, including several former Golden Nugget custodians who understand that the most valuable lessons come from those who watch quietly and learn patiently. Carmen Martinez enrolled in the University of Nevada's engineering program, her medical expenses fully covered by her father's incredible roulette victory. But the story of that extraordinary Tuesday afternoon had ripple effects that neither Robert nor Maria could have anticipated. Word of their incredible win spread through Las Vegas like wildfire, not just because of the amount, but because of the method. A janitor's granddaughter and a struggling contractor had seemingly cracked the code of one of the most secure gaming establishments in Nevada. 3 weeks after their victory, Maria received an unexpected visitor at her small apartment near UNLV, Dr. Patricia Hendricks, the university's leading mathematics professor and a former consultant for Nevada's Gaming Control Board, knocked on her door with a proposition that would change everything once again. "Miss Santos," Dr. Hendricks began settling into Maria's modest living room. "Your grandfather's work has caught the attention of some very important people. The Gaming Control Board wants to examine his notebooks." Maria's heart raced. "Are we in trouble? Did we do something illegal?" "Quite the opposite. What your grandfather discovered represents 37 years of legitimate observation and mathematical analysis. No cheating, no inside information, just pure statistical genius. The Gaming Control Board isn't investigating you. They want to hire you." Dr. Hendricks explained that Eduardo's notebooks contained the most comprehensive analysis of casino probability mechanics ever compiled by a private individual. His observations about the Golden Nuggets roulette wheel were just the beginning. Page after page revealed insights into blackjack dealing patterns, slot machine cycles, and even the subtle psychological tells of professional dealers. "Your grandfather essentially created a PhD-level dissertation without realizing it," Dr. Hendricks continued. "The Gaming Control Board wants to offer you a position as a statistical analyst, helping them identify and correct mechanical biases throughout Nevada's casinos." Meanwhile, Robert Martinez faced his own unexpected developments. The success of his roulette win had restored not just his company's finances, but his reputation throughout Henderson and Las Vegas. Contractors who had previously avoided his calls now sought partnerships. The local newspaper ran a feature story about his remarkable comeback, focusing on how a moment of desperate faith had transformed into responsible business leadership. But Robert's most meaningful encounter came 3 months after the win, when a familiar face appeared at his construction site. Victor Ramirez, his former business partner who had abandoned him during the company's darkest hour, stood nervously by the trailer that served as Robert's temporary office. "Roberto," Victor said, using the Spanish nickname from their younger days, "I heard about your incredible luck at the casino." Robert studied his former friend's face, seeing guilt mixed with hope. "It wasn't luck, Victor. It was faith in someone else's wisdom and the courage to risk everything when it mattered most. I came to apologize. When the company was struggling, I took the easy way out. I should have stayed and helped fight for what we built together." The conversation that followed revealed Victor's own journey through failure and redemption. After leaving Martinez and Sons, he had attempted to start his own contracting business, only to discover that success required more than just technical skill. It demanded loyalty, perseverance, and the ability to see potential in dark moments. "I've learned something important," Victor admitted. "Running away from problems doesn't solve them. It just creates new ones." Robert considered his former partner's words carefully. The new contracts flowing into Martinez and Sons required more experienced supervisors than he currently employed. But more importantly, he recognized in Victor the same desperation he had felt sitting at that blackjack table, watching his last hopes slip away. "The company is called Martinez and Sons," Robert said finally. "But maybe it's time to consider Martinez, Ramirez and Sons again." Their reconciliation became one of the most powerful aspects of Robert's transformation. Together, they began developing a mentorship program for struggling contractors, offering both financial guidance and emotional support for business owners facing bankruptcy. They called it the Second Chance Initiative, inspired by Maria's grandfather's belief that good people deserve good fortune. Maria Santos completed her first semester of statistics at UNLV, where she's writing her senior thesis on probability theory and mechanical bias in gaming equipment. But her academic journey took an unexpected turn when Dr. Hendricks introduced her to Professor James Wright, a visiting lecturer from MIT who specialized in applied probability theory. "Miss Santos," Professor Wright explained during their first meeting, "your grandfather's work represents something extraordinary in the field of observational statistics. Most mathematicians work with theoretical models. Eduardo Santos worked with real-world applications for nearly 4 decades." The final chapter, Eduardo Santos' legacy. Professor Wright offered Maria an opportunity that would honor her grandfather's memory in the most profound way possible. MIT's Department of Mathematics wanted to publish Eduardo's notebooks as part of a groundbreaking study on long-term statistical observation in controlled environments. More importantly, they offered Maria a full scholarship to complete her undergraduate degree at MIT, followed by graduate studies in applied probability theory. "Your grandfather may have been a janitor by profession," Professor Wright said, "but his mathematical instincts were doctoral level. With proper training, you could become one of the leading statistical analysts in the country." The decision to leave Nevada wasn't easy for Maria. The Golden Nugget had become more than just her workplace. It was the sacred ground where her grandfather's wisdom had finally received recognition. But she understood that Eduardo's greatest gift wasn't just the knowledge to win at roulette. It was the demonstration that careful observation and patient analysis could unlock opportunities anywhere. On her final day working at the Golden Nugget, Maria made one last visit to the VIP roulette table where her life had changed. Sarah Chen, the croupier who had witnessed their extraordinary win, greeted her with genuine warmth. "I heard you're leaving for college in Boston," Sarah said. "That's wonderful news. My grandfather always said education was the best investment. I think he'd be proud to know his observations are helping me get the best education possible." Sarah smiled knowingly. "Can I tell you something? In 20 years of dealing roulette, I've never seen anything like that afternoon. The way you trusted your grandfather's notes, the way you risked everything on pure faith, it reminded me why I love this job." "What do you mean?" "Most people come to casinos hoping for magic, but you and Mr. Martinez brought something better. You brought preparation, wisdom, and the courage to act on knowledge. That's not magic, that's mathematics combined with character." The departure and new beginnings. As Maria prepared to leave Las Vegas for Boston, she received one final surprise. The Golden Nuggets management presented her with a framed photograph of the roulette table where she and Robert had won, along with a brass plaque that read, "In honor of Eduardo Santos, 37 years of dedicated service and mathematical genius." But the most meaningful gift came from Robert Martinez. He visited her apartment the night before her departure, carrying a leather-bound journal that he had commissioned from a local craftsman. Eduardo's notebooks contained 37 years of observations. Robert explained, "This new journal is for your next 37 years. Fill it with your own discoveries, your own insights, your own wisdom." The journal's first page contained an inscription in Robert's careful handwriting. "To Maria Santos, may you honor your grandfather's memory by surpassing his achievements. From your grateful friend and fellow believer in the power of patience, observation, and faith." Their goodbye was emotional, but not final. Robert and Maria had forged a bond that transcended their shared moment of fortune. They had become family, united by Eduardo's wisdom and their own courage to trust in something greater than chance. 5 years later, the ripple effect. 5 years had passed since that extraordinary afternoon at the Golden Nugget, and the ripples of Eduardo Santos' wisdom continued to spread in ways no one could have anticipated. Maria Santos, now 27, stood before a packed auditorium at the International Conference on Applied Statistics in Geneva, Switzerland. Her presentation, Long-Term Pattern Recognition in Controlled Random Systems, the Santos method, had drawn mathematicians, statisticians, and probability theorists from around the world. The Santos method, as it had become known in academic circles, wasn't just about gambling. Maria's research had applications in financial markets, weather prediction, seismic activity monitoring, and even medical diagnosis. Her grandfather's simple observations about a casino roulette wheel had evolved into a revolutionary approach to pattern recognition that was changing multiple industries. 37 years of data collection by my grandfather, Eduardo Santos, revealed something remarkable, Maria explained to the captivated audience. What appears random to short-term observation often contains subtle but persistent patterns when viewed across sufficient time spans. The key is not just patience, but the systematic recording of seemingly insignificant variables. In the audience, Professor Wright from MIT beamed with pride. Maria had not only completed her undergraduate and graduate degrees with honors, but she had also revolutionized the field of applied probability theory. Her doctoral thesis had won the prestigious Kolmogorov Prize for outstanding work in probability theory. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a representative from the Nobel Committee, sat in the front row, taking careful notes, while the Nobel Prize in Economics wouldn't be announced for several months. Maria's work on long-term pattern recognition had already transformed how economists understood market, volatility, and risk assessment. Robert's expanding empire. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Robert Martinez stood in his new corporate headquarters, a gleaming 30-story tower that bore the name Second Chance Plaza in elegant gold lettering. The Second Chance initiative had grown beyond his wildest expectations, helping over 1,500 struggling business owners restructure their companies and rebuild their lives. Victor Ramirez, now equal partner and chief operating officer, walked into Robert's office carrying the quarterly reports. 15 new businesses this month, Roberto, all of them showing positive cash flow within 6 months of joining the program. And the default rate? Robert asked, though he already knew the answer. Still under 2%, lower than traditional banks, lower than the SBA. Eduardo's principle of patient observation applies to business recovery too. We take time to understand the real problems before prescribing solutions. The Second Chance initiative had become a model studied by business schools across the country. Harvard Business School had written 3 case studies about their methodology, and the federal government had begun incorporating their approaches into national small business recovery programs. Robert's personal office featured a glass display case containing Eduardo's original notebook, opened to the page where the janitor had first recorded the wheel's bias toward red 17. Below it, a small placard read in memory of Eduardo Santos, who taught us that wisdom comes in many forms, and that patience is the foundation of all great achievements. Carmen's innovation. Carmen Martinez, now 24, rolled her wheelchair through the halls of the University of Nevada's engineering building. But these weren't the same halls she had struggled to navigate years earlier. Her revolutionary adaptive access system had been installed throughout the campus, and similar systems were now being implemented in universities, hospitals, and public buildings across the nation. Her senior project had evolved into a multi-million-dollar company, Access Tech Solutions, which she ran from a state-of-the-art facility in Reno. The company's motto, inspired by her father's transformation, was simple: every barrier is an opportunity in disguise. Papa Carmen called Robert from her office, her voice bright with excitement. The Department of Veterans Affairs just approved our proposal. We're going to retrofit every VA hospital in the western United States with our accessibility systems. That's wonderful, Mia. How many veterans will this help? Over 50,000, and that's just the beginning. Maria's statistical analysis showed us that our systems don't just help disabled individuals. They improve navigation efficiency for everyone by an average of 23%. Grandfather Eduardo's lessons about patient observation helped us discover that too. Carmen had never met Eduardo Santos, but his influence on her life was undeniable. The money from Robert and Maria's casino win had funded her education, and Eduardo's philosophy of careful observation had taught her to see accessibility challenges as engineering puzzles waiting to be solved rather than insurmountable obstacles. The global impact. Dr. Samuel Chen, Sarah Chen's younger brother, and now a prominent researcher at the Centers for Disease Control, was applying Maria's Santos method to epidemic prediction. His early warning system for infectious disease outbreaks had already helped prevent 3 potential pandemics by identifying patterns in seemingly unrelated health data. The Santos method saved millions of lives last year, Dr. Chen explained to a congressional committee. By applying long-term pattern recognition to global health data, we can predict and prevent disease outbreaks with unprecedented accuracy. In Tokyo, economist Dr. Yuki Tanaka was using Eduardo's principles to predict market crashes. Her hedge fund, Patience Capital, had consistently outperformed the market by avoiding higher-risk investments that other firms missed. Eduardo Santos taught us that the most valuable information is often hidden in plain sight, she told the Financial Times. You just need the patience to observe and the wisdom to understand what you're seeing. The 10th anniversary. 10 years after that life-changing afternoon, Maria returned to Las Vegas for a special reunion. The Golden Nugget had organized Eduardo de Santos Day, a celebration of the janitor whose observations had touched lives around the world. Sarah Chen, now the casino's director of guest relations, had spearheaded the event. It's fitting, she explained to the assembled crowd, that we honor a man who spent 37 years in service to this establishment and whose legacy continues to serve humanity. Maria stood before the same roulette table where her life had changed, now permanently retired and converted into a memorial display. The wheel bore a bronze nameplate, the Eduardo Santos Memorial Wheel, in honor of the power of patience, observation, and faith. Robert Martinez, now a nationally recognized expert in business recovery, served as the keynote speaker. Eduardo Santos never sought recognition for his observations. He simply believed that careful attention to detail and patient accumulation of knowledge were virtues worth practicing. Today, his grandson's wisdom has helped rebuild over 3,000 businesses, prevented multiple epidemics, revolutionized accessibility design, and advanced our understanding of mathematics itself. Carmen Martinez had flown in from Washington, D.C., where she was testifying before Congress about universal accessibility standards. She rolled her wheelchair onto the stage and spoke to the crowd. I never met Eduardo Santos, but his legacy gave me the education and opportunities that led to my career. Today, over 2 million Americans with disabilities have better access to public spaces because of innovations that trace back to his patient observations. The academic recognition. The University of Nevada, Las Vegas, had established the Eduardo Santos Chair in Applied Mathematics, a prestigious endowed position that Maria now held. Her research lab, the Center for Long-Term Pattern Analysis, employed 47 researchers and had published over 200 peer-reviewed papers. Dr. Richard Hawthorne, the university's president, announced during the ceremony, The Eduardo Santos Scholarship Program has provided full funding for undergraduate mathematics education to over 500 students from working-class families. Many of these students have gone on to make significant contributions to science, engineering, and mathematics. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. The Smithsonian Institution had requested Eduardo's original notebook for their permanent collection, to be displayed alongside other great mathematical achievements in American history. Eduardo Santos represents something uniquely American, explained Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the Smithsonian's curator of American innovation. He was an immigrant who worked with his hands but thought with his mind. He proves that genius can emerge anywhere, and that dedication to careful observation is as valuable as formal education. Maria's reflection. As the ceremony concluded, Maria found herself alone with Eduardo's memorial wheel. She placed her hand on the brass nameplate and reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Her latest research was taking her in new directions. Working with NASA, she was applying the Santos method to the search for extraterrestrial life, analyzing decades of radio telescope data for patterns that might indicate intelligent communication. Her preliminary findings had already identified 17 anomalous signals that warranted further investigation. "Abuelo," she whispered to the memorial, "your patience taught me that the universe reveals its secrets slowly, but only to those willing to watch and wait. I'm still learning from you." Maria's phone buzzed with a text message from Professor Wright at MIT. "Maria, the Nobel Committee wants to schedule a preliminary interview. Congratulations on your nomination for the prize in economic sciences." She smiled, remembering her grandfather's words from his notebook's final entry. "Patience, Mia. The universe always reveals its truth to those who observe carefully and wait faithfully." The new generation. In a small apartment in East Las Vegas, 8-year-old Diego Santos Rodriguez carefully recorded observations in a notebook his grandmother Maria had given him for his birthday. Diego was Maria's nephew, the son of her younger brother Carlos, who had followed Maria's path into mathematics and now taught high school in Las Vegas. Diego's notebook contained meticulous observations about the birds that visited his family's backyard feeder. He had noticed that certain species appeared in predictable patterns based on weather conditions, time of year, and even the phase of the moon. His charts and graphs showed a sophistication unusual for a child his age. "Tia Maria," Diego said during one of her visits home, "I think the mockingbirds are trying to tell us something about earthquakes. They always disappear exactly 3 days before the ground shakes." Maria examined Diego's data with the same seriousness she would give to any research. The correlations were remarkable and potentially valuable. "Diego, your great-great-grandfather Eduardo would be very proud of these observations. Would you like to help me write a paper about animal behavior and seismic prediction?" The publishing phenomenon. Eduardo's notebooks had become the foundation for the Santos Journals, a series of published volumes that documented not just his roulette observations, but his philosophical reflections on patience, observation, and the nature of knowledge. The books had sold over 2 million copies worldwide and had been translated into 34 languages. The first volume, 37 Years of Watching, The Mathematical Poetry of Eduardo Santos, contained his complete roulette data alongside his personal reflections on life as an immigrant worker. The second volume, Letters to My Granddaughter, A Janitor's Guide to Understanding the Universe, featured previously unpublished writings Eduardo had left for Maria. The third volume, published posthumously, contained Eduardo's observations about human nature based on his decades of watching casino patrons. The Psychology of Hope and Desperation, A Janitor's View of Human Nature, had become required reading in psychology and sociology programs across the country. Dr. Margaret Foster, a literature professor at Princeton, had written in her review, "Eduardo Santos was not just a mathematician or observer of probability. He was a philosopher of the human condition who happened to work with a mop and bucket." His writings reveal profound insights into hope, persistence, and the dignity of honest work. The Global Education Initiative, the Eduardo Santos Foundation, established with proceeds from the book sales and funded by donations from Roberts Business Network, had created educational programs in 12 countries. The Foundation's mission was simple: identify brilliant minds in unexpected places and provide them with educational opportunities. In Mumbai, India, the Foundation had discovered Priya Patel, a street vendor's daughter whose mathematical abilities rivaled those of graduate students. She was now studying at Cambridge University on a full Santos Fellowship. In São Paulo, Brazil, Jorge Mendoza, a janitor like Eduardo, had been keeping detailed observations of building maintenance patterns. The Foundation had connected him with engineers who recognized that his observations could revolutionize predictive maintenance systems. Jorge was now pursuing an engineering degree while his insights were being implemented in buildings worldwide. In Lagos, Nigeria, Amara Okafor had been tracking patterns in street traffic from her position as a security guard. Her observations had led to traffic management innovations that reduced commute times by 35% across the city. The Foundation had arranged for her to study urban planning at the University of London. Eduardo's greatest legacy, Maria explained to the Foundation's board of directors, isn't just his mathematical observations. It's the demonstration that genius exists everywhere and that society benefits when we recognize and nurture it, regardless of where we find it. The technological revolution. TechCorp Industries, a Silicon Valley giant, had licensed Maria's Santos method for developing artificial intelligence systems. Their new AI platform, called Observer, was revolutionizing machine learning by incorporating long-term pattern recognition principles. Traditional AI systems look for immediate correlations, explained Dr. Lisa Park, TechCorp's Chief Innovation Officer. Observer AI uses the Santos method to identify patterns that emerge over years or decades. It's particularly powerful for climate modeling, economic forecasting, and medical research. Observer AI had already made breakthrough discoveries in cancer research, identifying genetic patterns that only became apparent when patient data was analyzed over 20-year periods. The system had also improved weather forecasting accuracy by 40%, and had successfully predicted 3 major economic downturns that traditional models had missed. The medical breakthrough. Dr. James Harrison at Johns Hopkins had applied the Santos method to medical diagnosis, analyzing patient records spanning multiple decades. His research had identified early warning signs for Alzheimer's disease that appeared 15 years before traditional symptoms emerged. Eduardo Santos taught us that the most important information is often hiding in accumulated small details. Dr. Harrison explained at the International Medical Research Conference, by applying his principles of patient observation to medical data, we can now predict and prevent diseases that were previously undetectable until too late. The Harrison-Santos diagnostic protocol had become standard practice in medical schools worldwide. Insurance companies were offering premium discounts for patients whose long-term health data was analyzed using Santos method principles, as the early intervention resulted in significantly better health outcomes and lower treatment costs. Robert's reflection. Robert Martinez sat in his penthouse office, looking out over the Las Vegas skyline. At 55, he had achieved success beyond his wildest dreams. But he understood that his accomplishments were built on Eduardo's foundation of patience and observation. The Second Chance Initiative now operated in all 50 states and had expanded internationally. They had helped over 8,000 businesses recover from failure, creating more than 100,000 jobs. But Robert's proudest achievement was the mentorship program that paired successful business owners with struggling entrepreneurs. Eduardo Robert said to the framed photograph on his desk, "You taught us that success isn't about lucky breaks, it's about preparing ourselves to recognize opportunity when it arrives. Your patience gave all of us the chance to become who we were meant to be." Carmen called from Washington, where she was now serving as an advisor to the president on disability rights and accessibility. "Papa, the infrastructure bill just passed. Every new federal building will be required to meet Access Tech standards. We're going to create accessible spaces for millions of Americans." Victor Ramirez entered the office with the annual report. "Roberto, the Foundation's education program has now provided scholarships to over 2,000 students. 15 of them have gone on to earn PhDs, and 43 have started their own businesses using second chance methodology." The international impact. The Santos method had transcended national boundaries. the United Nations had established the Eduardo Santos International Observatory, a research facility that applied long-term pattern recognition to global challenges including climate change, poverty reduction, and conflict prevention. Dr. Kofi Asante, the observatory's director, reported to the UN General Assembly, by applying Eduardo Santos principles to international development data, we have identified intervention points that can prevent conflicts before they escalate and address poverty before it becomes entrenched. The Santos method has helped us understand that global problems develop slowly and can be solved through patient, sustained effort rather than quick fixes. The European Union had implemented Santos method analysis in their economic planning, resulting in more stable markets and reduced unemployment. The African Union was using the method to predict and prevent famine by analyzing long-term agricultural and climate patterns. The final legacy, as Maria Santos approached her 40th birthday, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with her grandfather's notebooks. The kid who had once cleaned floors at the Golden Nugget had become, through his patient observations, one of the most influential figures in modern mathematics and social development. The Eduardo Santos Museum, located in the renovated Golden Nugget building, attracted over 500,000 visitors annually. The museum's centerpiece was the original roulette table, now surrounded by displays showing how Eduardo's principles had transformed fields ranging from medicine to space exploration. Children from around the world visited the museum's education center, where they learned that genius could emerge from anywhere and that patient observation was more valuable than quick assumptions. The museum's motto, taken from Eduardo's own words, was displayed in dozens of languages. Watch carefully, record faithfully, and trust that patterns will reveal themselves to those who have the patience to see. But perhaps Eduardo's greatest legacy was the understanding that dignity and worth were not determined by job titles or social status. He had been a janitor by profession, but his careful attention to the world around him had improved millions of lives and advanced human knowledge in ways that would have been impossible to predict. As Maria looked at the memorial plaque in her MIT office, she read the words that had guided her entire career. Eduardo Santos, who taught us that wisdom comes in many forms, that patience is the foundation of understanding, and that every person has the potential to change the world through careful observation and dedicated effort. The house had indeed remembered what it owed, and through Eduardo Santos' legacy, it would continue paying that debt to future generations, proving that sometimes the most profound changes begin with a janitor who simply took the time to watch, to think, and to record what he saw. The wheel had stopped spinning long ago, but Eduardo's observations continued to influence the world in ways that multiplied far beyond what any casino could calculate. In the end, the greatest victory wasn't beating the odds, it was proving that patient wisdom could transform not just individual lives, but the entire understanding of what it means to observe, to learn, and to contribute to human knowledge. Eduardo Santos had spent 37 years being invisible to the world above, but his legacy would be visible forever, inspiring generations to look more carefully, think more patiently, and trust that their observations, no matter how humble their circumstances, might contain the seeds of extraordinary change. The house always remembers, and sometimes what it remembers transforms everything.